Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. Hope you all had a good trading session today. If you traded at all, considering it was FOMC day and the Powell presser, our very first FOMC meeting results of the 2025 year. As no surprise, the Fed did not make any rate cut or rate hike, so that was pretty much a duh kind of thing. The main thing was a feel for the statements and how the Fed is processing the new regime change with President Trump now being in office and them trying to navigate all these new statements and policy changes and all that kind of good stuff. So we'll get into that more in just a moment. But yeah, stocks finished a little bit lower today following the FOMC meeting, and we've already had a few important earnings already pop up that we'll get to as well in just a moment. But we opened up a little bit weaker today, as you can see here from the hourly chart. We had a little bit of a weak start, and then we had a nice little push. Pretty much after Powell, we had a pretty interesting moves throughout. But after all the headlines and stuff, everything seems to have settled in pretty neat. The QQQ itself was only down about 1 point, or not even 0.2%. So nothing too crazy overall. If we look at the Fed statement here, we can see that they really shortened the statement in general, and we can see that they cut out this key phrase here saying that that inflation has made progress towards the committee's 2% objective, but they added in the unemployment rate has stabilized at a low level in recent months, and that the labor market conditions continue to remain solid, and that inflation does still seem to be remaining elevated. So we'll go ahead and dive into some of these notes here real quick. I did post these in my channel on Discord. If you haven't, please check those out. I gave it a nice little concise thing of what all was asked. But for the most part, just a quick review in regards to anything about presidential policy. Fed Powell had zero things to say and pretty much would not acknowledge any of those types of questions, because he has been very adamant and stern that the Fed, that is not their focus. Their focus is on the two mandates of keeping inflation low and having full employment. So that's their goal. They did not have anything to really say about anything that Trump is doing. He was asked, does inflation need to be at 2% in order to cut rates again? He said no, they just need to see progress. When asked if there is anything about a March rate cut, he didn't say no, but he sure as heck did not say yes. And inflation continues to be on a slow and sometimes bumpy path. So there's that. Like I said, we've also had a few earnings release, and we'll go ahead and dive into that. Let's go ahead and pull up the first one, which was Microsoft. As you can see here, we've gotten a negative reaction to their earnings. They did post a double beat, but the main thing that brought on this initial sell-off was that the Azure cloud revenues was a miss. But as you can see, they're recovering nicely. Nothing too crazy. We have actually been well within the estimated move for Microsoft, so not really much going on here. Just some volatility after the report. Same thing with Tesla. Tesla likes to do Tesla-y things. You got a nice little bull flag forming up here. But same thing with Tesla. Actually, the opposite of Tesla. Microsoft was a double beat. Tesla has been a double miss. But as you can see, the press conference seems to be going well. But other than that, that's what you got. IBM also had a report today. They reported a double beat, and as you can see, up pretty nicely here in the after hours. And ServiceNow reported a miss on revenues, and it looks like they are down in the aftermarket right now. The only thing that we're pretty much waiting on is Meta. Meta has not released as of this recording, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. But for the most part, if we look here at the QQQ, we can see that things are still pretty stable. You know, we had that pretty big, substantial sell-off the other day when DeepSeek came out with the whole AI news that we talked about in the last video. We had a really strong bounce back, especially with Nvidia, as we came to a more understanding about what this means. And today was more of a let's wait to see what Powell has to say and see what some of these big tech earnings. So here we are. We're still in a neutral environment, score 14 on the daily. We're still in a low compression squeeze. Not much of a trend. We have weak thrust, but the levels, they still remain pretty clean here. In fact, we can go ahead and mark a new one here at 523, which lines up just about where the hourly 50 is, this gold line. And we can see that we have a gap to fill to the upside. If we start to break through 523, we can anticipate or see if we can get a move to fill this gap back up to about 528. Same thing on the downside. There's a gap down below. If we start to crack 511.50, yeah, there's a gap to fill down below towards 505. So we're kind of stuck in this middle ground for the NASDAQ, and we just need to see a few more candles to see which way things are going to go. Same thing here with SPY. SPY has recovered pretty well off that sell-off from the other day, and yesterday was pretty impressive. In fact, a lot, even on this sell-off, we saw that market breadth was actually doing quite fine. In fact, over 60% of the S&P names were positive, and we had that recovery on some of the semiconductors names and so forth. And today, pretty much the same. We opened lower, pretty much printed an inside day, but we're holding above the daily 50. We're in a mid-bull score of 28. Structure seems to be okay. We're not in a squeeze by any means, but for the most part, yeah, we're okay. Even we're in a neutral spot on the hourly. We could be setting up for a pretty big move. It just depends, which way are things going to go. Are we going to break back above 606.5 and push back up towards all-time highs at about 611? Or are we finally going to start to see some cracks and we start to lose 595.60 and we start to fill some of these gaps to the downside? But like I said, we still need to see a few more candles in order to get a stronger grip of where things are. Small caps, again, we're still just kind of stuck and sandwiched between the daily 50 and the daily 21 EMA. Pretty much the same thing. If we break above 230.25, then yeah, we could see a good move back up to this zone up here at about 233.50. If we start to lose 222.70, yeah, then we could start to see a move back into this gap and fill towards about 220. So that's where I'm keeping an eye on. We're in a high compression here on the IWM, and that's where the Bollinger Bands are very, very tight within the Keltner channels, and we could see a pretty interesting move on the IWM soon. So that's what we're going to be paying attention to. The Dow's pretty strong, especially when you compare it to the SPY and the NASDAQ. We can see that we've had this nice uptrending move, and it had little to zero effect as far as that DeepSeek situation with the AI. But we're just shy of all-time highs at about 451.55, and yeah, with good structure, momentum seems to be looking pretty good. We're at a mid-bull score of 26. I mean, the hourly looks quite impressive. We've had this huge run-up over the past several days, and we are holding trend. So the Dow continues to look pretty darn strong here. These are your blue chip names, and everything seems to be pretty well. A lot of financials, a lot of healthcare names within this index. So, if you take a look at the XLF, we even printed a new lifetime high today at 5174. Names like JP Morgan, Goldman, they continue to lead the way. You even got, financial names such as Visa and Discover and all that. These guys continue to look pretty darn strong. Citigroup and even Bank of America continues to look pretty darn resilient. As far as everything else goes, nothing too crazy. VIX still continues to remain muted. Even today, we only had a VIX of about 18, and we slid right back down to 16. So that's always a good sign. But all in all, the big boys are starting to report. Microsoft, if we take a look at the daily, this has recovered really nicely. I'm curious to see if we get a move above this 448 to see if we can take on the new lifetime highs at 456. Microsoft has been pretty stable in this zone here, as you can see, very sideways, not making much progress for pretty much the entire month of December and January. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. But you still have some very strong names in Amazon, Google, even names like Hood and Roblox. All these guys continue to be impressive across the board. So Reddit. I know a few of our guys in the Discord have been all over Reddit. This continues to be a powerhouse. Snow is looking pretty good. We even took on that overnight swing on Baba with its AI news. We did the overnight swing, and that hit pretty decent as well. So, I mean, there's still a lot of strong names out there, and market breadth continues to be pretty darn good. If we take a look at the SPX average of the names above the 50 we can see about 50% of S&P names are above their 50 daily simple moving average, about 60% above their 200. So market breadth still continues to look pretty good. The equal weight RSP is still pretty healthy as well. So all in all, we're in the middle of earnings season. We got some of these big boys out of the way now. We got Apple earnings tomorrow. And now that we got the Fed out of the way, we can see what comes up next, which tomorrow we have our final reading of the 2024 GDP, which comes in at 8:30, as well as the weekly unemployment claims. And then we end the week with the core PCE. So we still have a lot of data-driven news coming out within these last 2 days of the week, and we'll just keep our eyes and ears peeled on that. But yeah, like I said, as we close out this week and move on from Powell and digest some of this news, our levels are pretty clean here, especially on the SPY and the QQQ. Can the NASDAQ get above 523, or are we just going to pitter-patter around for a little bit while longer? But all right, guys, that's going to be it for me. Y'all have a great rest of y'all's evening, and I will see you all tomorrow. Take care.